I just want to say I'm sorry for being away for so long. I have no reason, there's no rhyme to it, but it happened, and for that I apologise. But this is the past now, let's keep marching forward. Ash stands feet away from Riolu, the Pokemon still grasping at its very clearly injured arm, but it stands its guard, lifting its good hand up and firing off a vacuum wave which hits Ash directly in the stomach, causing him to keel over gasping for air, as Riolu lets out a low growl trying to tell Ash to back off. Seeing this, Aleki goes to attack Riolu, charging up a Thundershock, but Ash snaps for his partner to stay back. Ash's instincts telling him that if another Pokemon was to enter this interaction, it would trigger Riolu's fight or flight instincts. This annoys Aleki, but he follows the order. Ash, finally catching his breath, manages to stumble to his feet, and he softly speaks to Riolu, telling the Mon that he doesn't know what drove him out here, but all he wants to do now is help out Riolu. Gently putting a hand forward, he tells Riolu to trust him. The Emanation Pokemon is suddenly hit by a tsunami of aura. It's gentle, calm, and so comforting. As it locks eyes with Ash, the source of this power, Riolu can't help but drop its guard. It's never felt a human with an aura like this. So limping weakly towards the trainer, as a surge of its own aura flares up, and for a second, Ash can almost feel like he hears the Pokemon asking for his help. So without wasting a second, he walks forward, catching Riolu before it passes out, examining its arm and looking at the other injuries its body has sustained. He can tell that the injury to its arm is far beyond his pay grade. Ash can tell that this injury could be permanent if not treated soon, and now in a situation where he's unsure of which city they are actually closer to, he has to spend a second pondering what decision to make, and after thinking it over, he looks towards the direction of Orberg. He apologises to Riolu, who's now unconscious, and taps the Pokemon with a Pokeball, knowing that having Riolu in the Pokeball will help not only prevent the injury from getting any worse, but also should help relieve the pain ever so slightly. Having now secured Riolu in its Pokeball, and now in his back pocket, Ash is about to turn to recall his other Pokemon, and begin sprinting towards Orberg. But that's when a familiar jolt of lightning flies by the trainer's head, with his own Gligar and Zoe's Glameow jumping over Ash to defend him from what looks to be a swarm of Zubats, and in the background, Ash spots two shadowy figures in the background, lurking from the distance. However, before Ash can make out if it's Pokemon, trainer, or somewhere in the middle, red lines soon pull the swarm of Zubats back to what Ash can only assume is their Pokeballs, and that's when the shadowy figures disappear into the forest. Something about this sends shivers down both Ash and Zoe's spines, and gives Ash a hunch that this could be related to Riolu's injuries, making the already present pressure to rush out of here grow. So Ash turns, recalling both Gligar and Elekid, thanking them both for having his back, while Glameow was recalled by Zoe. With both trainers not having to share a word, they sprint off towards the path which leads towards Orberg. The pair run with no breaks, not only for the Riolu's sake, but also to avoid whatever or whoever came at them. As the pair sprint as fast as their bodies will allow them to, the moon soon rises high in the sky. Both Zoe and Ash feel a great deal of fatigue, but as Orgberg Gate comes into sight, they feel a surge of energy swell up inside of them, allowing the pair to continue running forward, breaking free from the light of the moon and disappearing into the darkness of the cave. As the sun rises above Mount Coronet, both Ash and Zoe emerge from the darkness of Orgberg Gate, their bodies tired, hardly having the energy to walk, their sprinting having turned into slow and weak stumbles towards the Pokemon Center, getting strange looks of people when they pass, but inching ever closer to their destination. They soon find themselves at the desk of Nurse Joy, who can't help but gasp at the sight of these two trainers, but before she can offer them any help, Ash, almost begging Nurse Joy, asks her to help this Riolu. As he brings them on out of its ball, it's still passed out, however Ash can tell its arm hasn't gotten any worse, making him relieved and happy he made the decision he did. Nurse Joy is shocked, but doesn't even waste a second. Not needing to know the unimportant details, she quickly calls for her Chansey and rushes Riolu into emergency care, as all Ash and Zoe can do is sit in the waiting area. Exhaustion finally catches up with Zoe, as she passes out on the chair almost straight away. Meanwhile, Ketchum struggles to sit still, worried about Riolu, the boy not even having the ability to stomach food right now. All he can do is watch the clock tick away, praying to Arceus that Riolu will be okay. and after a painfully slow wait, finally Nurse Joy shows her face, sharing the news with Ash that Riolu will be okay. However, as Riolu's trainer, Nurse Joy must ask how Riolu got this injury, and when this causes Ash to share the story of how he found the Pokemon and the two shadowy figures they had run into. Hearing this, Nurse Joy gives Ash a worried look, telling Ash that she doesn't know how Ash found Riolu, but the Pokemon is extremely lucky that he did, sharing with Ash how in recent days a group of Pokemon hunters had been seen in the nearby area. While the group has yet to be identified, it's been reported that trainers with rare Pokemon, or even wild Pokemon, have gone missing completely. All that is known is they will use any underhanded tactic they can to capture their target. Ash, hearing this, clenches his fist, wondering if that's who was responsible for hurting Riolu, and Nurse Joy tells Ash that his Riolu will be waking up shortly, telling him that he can wait in the emergency room with the Pokemon if he so wishes, something Ash is happy to do, leaving Zoe to get some more sleep alone. However, when the boy sits in the room alongside Riolu and seeing the Pokemon's okay, it's like a wave of relief hits Ash, as his eyelids become hundreds of times heavier, and before he's even really thought about it, he is asleep as well. When he finally awakens, he feels a set of eyes peering on him. Looking around, he spots Riolu, sat at the end of its bed, staring down Ash. The trainer smiles, happy to see Riolu up and moving. However, the Pokemon just stares down the trainer even more, trying to sense that aura from before. However, now it's non-traceable. It's as if it's just disappeared, making Riolu question if what it had sensed was just a moment of delusion. It wants to find out more about this trainer, who has such a strong aura, and also is genuinely grateful for what it had done for him. So, Riolu is happy to accept Ash's offer to join his team, knowing he will either have found a trainer whose strength will help him fuel his revenge, or at minimum have someone who will help hide his presence until he is ready. So, with Riolu joining the squad, the trainer heads with his newest capture out of the room to join Zoe, who is currently practicing her next contest performance. But when spotting Ash, she stops. Seeing Riolu walking alongside the trainer, she is happy to see them on as okay, even offering it a small handshake, something the polite Pokemon returns with its good hand. Now being on the battlefield, Ash introduces Riolu to the other members of his team, with Elekid and Gligar welcoming Riolu in very different ways, while Elekid keeps its distance, offering nothing more than a quick glance and turning its nose up at Riolu. Gligar walks forward excitedly, shaking Riolu's hand while pinching into Riolu's skin ever so slightly. When the Pokemon lets out a small wince of pain, Gligar can't help but let out a small cackle. However, Riolu doesn't get angry at this, instead returns the favour by using its good hand to get a nice solid grip on Gligar's core and giving it a small shock by crushing it ever so slightly. Gligar yelps out in pain for a second, with Riolu laughing out loud, and soon that laughter is joined by Gligar, who has taken its second to recover and has already begun to bond with his newest capture more than Elekid. Ash spots this, thanks Gligar for being so welcoming, while shooting a look over to Elekid as if saying for him to be nice. The Mon just looks back at Ash annoyed, but follows the order given, walking over and giving an instruction which says to Riolu that Elekid is the top dog around here, and Riolu needs to learn its place beneath him. However, Riolu accepts this as a challenge, staring daggers at the static Pokemon. As sparks quite literally begin to fly, Ash has to break the pair up, telling them both that now isn't the time, reminding Riolu that it needs to rest its hand for a few days before it even thinks about fighting, and then turns to Elekid, scolding the Pokemon and telling it should be more welcoming to its new friends. Elekid just scoffs, tilting its body as it looks at Ash, as if saying, "Can we get to training now?" Ash lets out a sigh, annoyed that Elekid won't play nice, but he does agree that he probably does need to get started with training. So placing his hand on his chin, he starts thinking about how to proceed. He had looked into this gym, and he knows it houses a Steel-type master, so he needs to be ready to counter that type. Thinking back to what he learns, he knows that 2 of his 3 Pokemon have a type matchup. However, Riolu is still healing, so they'll have to wait for him to heal, and in honesty, he would rather avoid using Riolu, knowing that his hand needs a lot more time to heal than however long it takes this cast to come off. That only really leaves him Gligar, but Gligar doesn't know any ground moves, so he should probably use these few days he has available while Riolu's healing to try and teach the Pokemon a ground move. As for Elekid, the Pokemon won't be able to deal much in terms of damage to a Steel type, but the Pokemon is also probably his strongest team member, so maybe he should go out of his way to try and figure out a move or a strategy to use as a backup if Riolu or Gligar fails. Ash sits pondering in silence for a few moments before he breaks his Pokemon into two smaller groups. Riolu is told that he just needs to sit and rest, avoiding all training, while Elekid and Gligar are set to train together. Thanks to Gligar having a unique typing, it will allow Elekid to unleash a full power electric attack on Gligar without doing any damage, so the Pokemon will be fine. This will be a way to train in hopes to increase Elekid's overall electrical output. Plus, if Gligar's on a moving target, it gives Elekid some, target practice to improve his aim. All the while, Gligar will not only act as a moving target for Elekid, but also will be continuously using its sand attack, in hopes to develop it into some move that can actually deal damage. Hearing this plan, Riolu is annoyed that it has to sit on the sideline, as Elekid shoots it a smug glance. But soon, Ash and his Pokemon begin their training. Gligar begins some aerial maneuvers as Elekid fires off a barrage of bolts into the air. Occasionally, Gligar swoops down, firing off a sand attack towards Elekid's, in hopes to evolve the attack. In one of these combinations, however, Zoe catches a moment which shocks her, as she spots something incredible. When the sand attack and thunder shock collides, there's a beautiful combination there. Now having an idea of her next routine, she starts her own training, as all the while Riolu is forced to sit on the bench nearby, just watching this rather unorthodox and weird training Ash is putting his Pokemon through, trying to catch a glimpse at Ash's aura once more. However, after a short while of watching, its fatigue soon catches up with it, as its body is still very tired from its injuries, and soon the Pokemon drifts off into a deep sleep. While asleep, the Pokemon finds itself haunted by the beast which caused its injuries once more, stuck in a battle it cannot win, and is forced to lose over and over again. All the while, other Pokemon watch on. Pokemon it would have called friends and family watch on. Some avert their gaze, but most just watch on emotionless. Luckily for Riolu, the nightmare does end. However, unfortunately, it is only ever when the battle reaches its natural conclusion. And in that moment, Riolu wakes up and is forced to sit and watch Ash and his Pokemon train. That is until they stop to rest for the night, where Riolu is able to interact with Ash. Ash wants to spend time to bond with Riolu, often fussing the Pokemon a great deal during their mealtime, checking its arm's injury, speaking to it, trying to learn all he can about the Pokemon, even speaking with it, trying to learn what it wants to do in its training, helping a bond form as with each conversation Riolu feels great power hidden away inside this trainer, making it more attentive in future training sessions it watches. But with Ash's attention going more towards his newest captures and bonding, his starter starts to feel it's being left out. It's like Ash doesn't want to spend time with it, as a fuel of anger towards his fellow teammates begins to grow. Days begin to pass, where this is the cycle. They train, eat, sleep, and after a week, Riolu finds itself cast free, but is still advised to take it easy and avoid battles when possible. As for Gligar and Elekid, both of them made some great development in their training, and Gligar had even mastered a new move. Ash, hoping his team will now be ready, sets his sights on the gym. The trainer, having higher confidence, allows him to overlook the fact that Riolu really shouldn't be battling for a while longer, so he will have to rely on only 2 of his 3 Pokemon. Not thinking of this, as the excitement of his first gym battle impairs Ash's better judgment. So soon, the boy plus Zoe find themselves making their way into the entrance of the gym. Upon entering the gym, however, the sound of steel smashing against steel echoes throughout the building. Once walking around the building and making it to the main hall, the source of the sound is soon found, with the source of the sound being a Steelix and a Skarmory, the 2 Pokemon colliding heads. All the while, a man with a crazed look in his eyes shouts out for his Pokemon to keep pushing and find out which one has the better defense. Ash watches slightly nervous as these 2 behemoths of Pokemon beat down on one another. However, a rush of excitement soon overcomes him. That excitement makes Ash shout out aloud, asking if the man is the gym leader. Learning that he is, Ash is quick to challenge Byron to a battle, something the hard-headed gym leader is happy to accept, and even set the terms for, announcing a 3v3 where Ash can swap as he pleases, while he himself cannot. Ash accepts these terms, and soon he takes to his side of the field, while a ref begins to make the announcement, telling both trainers to offer up their first Pokemon. Byron, having learnt this is Ash's first gym battle, is polite enough to present his Pokemon first, in Bronzor, In tow, Ash brings Gligar to the battlefield, as the two Pokemon float face to face for a few seconds, before a call of battle begin erupts. Byron begins to battle off with a Gyro Ball. The bronze Pokemon spins on the spot before jolting forward and slamming its steely hide into Gligar. The force of the attack knocks Gligar from the air for a second, but before Gligar can stand or correct itself, Bronzor has hit it once again with another Gyro Ball at the order of Byron. The Steel Specialist looks up at Ash, who looks a bit dazzled, and tells him he needs to get his head in the game, otherwise he's going to get 3-0'd here. And Byron is in a winning mood, so he's not going to slow down just because the boy's a rookie. Hearing this, Ash is snapped out of his daze. The intensity of his first gym battle had caught up with him, and now he realises that a Gligar is going to take another Gyro Ball. Thinking fast, he tells Gligar to get itself up and wait until the last second before firing off a Mud Shot. Gligar manages to do so, pulling itself to its feet and aiming its claws towards Bronzor, and waiting until the last possible second when Bronzor is inches away from colliding with him, and then it opens up its pincers and sends out a surge of mud that slams into the bronze Pokemon, halting its momentum to a stop and breaking the Gyro Ball's spin. Ash, seeing this, calls for a follow-up wing attack, as Gligar jumps up using the weak air streams in the building to gain some altitude and deliver a powerful wing attack, knocking the gym leader's Pokemon to the ground and out of the air. Byron gives the order for Bronzor to get airbound again, but Ash, wanting to prove that he is not a rookie, had already given the order for another Mud Shot once more, as Gligar now floats above Bronzor and fires down a barrage of Mud Shots onto the Pokemon. And thanks to being in an unfavourable position, with Bronzor being face first in the dirt, when these attacks collide they are all crits, causing spirals to soon spin in Bronzor's eyes, Ash having won the first round of this fight. He cheers out praise to Gligar, the Pokemon landing down on the ground and doing a little dance, which Ash mimics, the trainer not feeling a stir which happens in its Pokeballs. Byron looks at the boy and sees that he is no rookie, much like that other Cantonian kid he fought the other week. This hardens his resolve to win, as his next Pokemon touches the field, or at least begins to fly over it, as Skarmory takes to the sky. Knowing this selection will put Ash at a very unfavourable advantage, Byron gives the quick order for a Metal Claw. The much larger flying type soon looms over Gligar, slashing its dagger-like talons deep into Gligar's chest, knocking Gligar out of the sky. Ash, figuring the metallic monster might mutilate Gligar if it stays in the battle any longer, he returns his own flyer, thanking it for getting him the lead in this battle. Wanting to keep his current momentum, Ash brings out Elekid, wanting to test how conductive this steel bird is. Elekid touches down to the field with an arrogant smile, even when looking at its opponent, which now towers over him. Ash cheers out for a starter, causing a surge of electricity to jolt around it, loving the attention. As Ash, not wanting to give Byron the first move, orders for Elekid to use Charge, the Pokemon beginning to build up electricity. However, this doesn't go by unpunished, as Skarmory manages to land what looks to be a really painful Metal Claw, which sends Elekid skidding back, but before words of panic can leave Ash's mouth, Elekid lets out a cry of its name, alerting Ash to it being okay. Smiling at hearing this, Ash watches as Skarmory begins to take evasive manoeuvres at the order of Byron, clearly expecting a powerful counter-attack to come from the electric type. But as a confident grin grows on Ash's face, he shouts out for a Thunder Shock. The amped up lightning fires out of the plug Pokemon, and while the attack is powerful, it's also accurate, as even with Skarmory's pretty impressive evasive manoeuvres, but thanks to Elekid having spent the better part of last week training on hitting a training target, and also thanks to Skarmory's rather conductive coating, the attack lands true, shaking Skarmory to the core, and bringing its flying to a halt, causing the Pokemon to come plummeting towards the ground below. Ash, wanting to capitalise on this, calls for another charge attack, an order which Elekid begins to follow dutifully, lighting jolting around Elekid's body. Byron is not wanting to take another hit like that though, calling out for his bird Pokemon and telling it to right itself and hit that dumb plug with a drill run. The bird does so, using the momentum it's built plummeting towards the earth to help increase its speed, and in turn increasing the power of its spin, it altering its trajectory ever so slightly to now be facing Elekid, and thanks to the assistance of gravity and its naturally heavy body, soon Skarmory's beak is drilled directly into Elekid's chest. Skarmory hitting Elekid hard enough to send the baby Pokemon on a crash course with some rocks, decorating the gym. Soon Elekid's back is pinned against one of these rocks, while Skarmory's beak presses deep into Elekid's torso. As the small plug Pokemon's body starts to go limp, Byron assumes this attack was enough to put it down, but before the ref can make any calls, jolts of electricity spark around Skarmory and Elekid, as Byron looks up spotting Ash smiling. The boy having trusted Elekid to take the attack, he calls out for Thundershock, and Elekid suddenly grabs hold of Skarmory's neck, making sure the bird Pokemon cannot escape. However, instead of its usual Thundershock, blue lightning begins to spread across the battlefield as Elekid lets out a powerful cry and soon fires off a shockwave attack. All of this energy surging out of Elekid's small body. Skarmory at first tries to pull back, but thanks to being so close to the attack when it was first fired, and having a nice metal coating to draw in more lightning, the Pokemon is finding its nervous system being lit up like a Christmas tree, its muscles locking into place, as Elekid pours all the juiced up energy it can into this attack. After a long 12 seconds of lightning surging through Skarmory's body, the lightning stops, finally allowing Skarmory to pull away from Elekid. However, it can only pull away to faint, as Elekid is named the victor of this round. Having been declared the victor, Elekid lets out a powerful shout of its own name while holding its arm where the drill run had hit. Ash goes to ask if Elekid's alright, but the Pokemon, knowing its trainer well already, turns back, giving a thumbs up, telling Ash that it wants to keep battling. Ash nods, smiling, turning his attention back to Byron, whose face looks a bit perplexed at both of these Cantonian trainers at being so powerful. But he's enjoying this, he loves a good battle, so he brings out the second strongest Pokemon he owns, with Bastiodon still out of commission, bringing out his Steelix. The giant Pokemon looms over Elekid and Ash, and once familiarising himself with the Pokemon using the Pokédex, Ash realises Elekid would be a poor idea to use against Steelix. So using his better judgment, Ash recalls the Pokemon, causing Elekid to give a look of confusion and annoyance. Instead, Ash brings out his Gligar, the flying scorpion Pokemon having healed back some of the damage dealt to it by Bronzor, and wanting to try and get his first gym battle be a 3-0, he goes for an opening mud shot. Gligar lifts its claws and fires off the ground type attack directly towards the Iron Snake Pokemon, as the multitude of mud munitions fired from its claws hit against Steelix's solid body. However, the gigantic Pokemon hardly flinches, instead returns fire by opening its giant jaw and firing off a breath of bluey purpley energy at the command of a Dragon Breath. The draconic energy engulfs the small flying type, and after a few seconds of being absorbed by this draconic flame, it soon disperses, revealing a very charred looking Gligar, but the Pokemon is somehow still standing on its feet, but clearly on its final legs. Ash wants to get at least some more damage in and asks if Gligar can fight on, and when receiving a nod of approval from the Pokemon, Ash tells it to take to the sky, knowing that a moving target is much harder to hit. Gligar, wanting to use the updrafts from the lingering flames, goes to take flight, but then a jolt of static energy shoots through its body, as the side effect of Dragon's Breath rears its ugly head in a paralysis, causing Gligar to fall back to the ground and lay face first in it. Byron, wanting some payback for his Bronzor, calls for an Iron Tail. Steelix swings its tail down on top of the Fly Scorpion like an axe, the impact of the attack shaking the arena. Ash shouts out for Gligar, unknowingly alerting one of his Pokemon to the current situation, and when Steelix lifts its giant tail, it reveals an unconscious Gligar. Ash recalls his Pokemon, now unsure of how to proceed, knowing Elekid has no way to combat this thing besides its quick attack, and that's really not going to uphold in this fight. He then considers conceding defeat and returning again in the future with a better plan, but as he has this thought, Riolu appears from its ball. With a confident cry of its name, it alerts Ash that it's willing to battle. Ash goes to tell Riolu that it shouldn't be battling, but in this moment an unknown energy informs Ash that Riolu is not only not worried, it's ready. Sensing this, Ash nods, telling Riolu that things get way too intense, he's pulling it out of this battle. Riolu nods before jumping into the battlefield, taking a fighting stance where its still healing arm is hid behind its body. Byron, spotting the future Steel-type Pokemon, cannot help but praise Ash in seeing that this trainer has some good Pokemon and has a decent taste in them, telling Ash that it's time to test his mettle. Ash starts off the fight with a vacuum wave. Riolu, punching forward, sends a wave of condensed air towards Steelix. When colliding against the metal shell of the monster, it causes a grunt of pain to escape Steelix's mouth. enough so to cause Byron to realise that this Riolu is much higher level than Ash's other Pokemon. Knowing this baby Pokemon could get some good damage in if it's not put down soon, he calls for a dig, causing the Iron Snake Pokemon to disappear underground. The once easy target now becomes impossible to follow. At least that's what Ash thinks. However, Riolu's eyes dart around the arena as it follows Steelix's movements thanks to its aura. However, Ash, unaware of this, wants to at least make sure that any following blow dealt to Riolu will deal less damage, so calls for a bulk up. Riolu does go to follow its trainer's commands, but when sensing Steelix resurface, he instead jumps away, avoiding the attack and not taking any damage. But just as fast as Steelix surfaces, it burrows into the ground again. However, Byron can't help but notice Steelix isn't moving as fast as it normally would be. It's like something has affected its speed. While Ash is having a moment with Riolu as well, asking if the Emanation Pokemon was able to follow Steelix's movements. With Riolu nodding, Ash smiles, telling Riolu that it's incredible, causing Riolu to hold its head high in arrogance. But now, not paying attention to where Steelix is, it finds itself on the receiving end of a powerful dig attack. The force of Steelix surfacing sends Riolu skybound. With the Pokemon now suspended in the air, Ash has to watch on in panic, trying to give an order. However, Byron gives one first, calling for an Iron Tail to bring Riolu back down to the earth. An order executed quickly and effectively by Steelix, as Riolu, now unable to dodge in the air, takes the full attack of an Iron Tail, being slammed into the ground. The combination of Iron Tail and Dig are enough to put Riolu in the red, but the Pokemon is not down and out, as it soon shows off its drive, pulling itself to its feet, having an intense pain shoot through its body coming from its arm, having landing on it weirdly and put a lot of pressure on it. However, Riolu desperately tries to hide this pain as it's feeling, gritting its teeth and enjoying the rush of this battle far too much. Ash begins to feel the rush of battle as well, unknowingly causing his aura to flare up, grabbing the attention of Riolu, who had never sensed a human with this much aura. It's unpolished, it's messy, but in this moment it's impressive. As Ash and Riolu begin to sync up, Ash calls for a bulk up, and Riolu follows the order. However, when feeling its muscles grow in its arm, it causes jolts of pain to shoot through its body, but it can't stop to think much on it, as it's given an order to dodge an oncoming Iron Tail using a quick attack. Riolu clicks back into battle, using its enhanced speed to narrowly jump up and avoid the attack. As Ash watches this, he has an idea on how to quickly end this battle. Ordering for another bulk up, Riolu follows this, causing even more pain to jolt through its body. However, its newfound bulk allows it to better take an oncoming rock throw, but once confirming Riolu is okay, Ash tells Riolu to use quick attack and scale Steelix's body and not stop until it arrives on the Iron Snake's head. Riolu takes this order in stride, breaking into its top speed as fast as it can. Byron, not wanting to find out what Ash has planned, tells Steelix to fire off a Dragon Breath to keep Riolu at bay. However, the fighting type speed makes it easy to dodge the Draconic Flames, as soon it finds itself at the base of Steelix's tail. Now using an array of high speed jumps and acrobatic maneuvers, it begins to scale the Titanium Titan's body. And before Byron can give any counter orders, Riolu stands atop of Steelix's head, now in a position where Steelix cannot hit it, but it can hit Steelix. Ash, seeing Riolu up there, grins massively and shouts out for a flurry of force palms. A grin grows on Riolu's face as well, as it begins to lift its arms upwards, not thinking about which of its arms it's using before slamming his palm down on top of Steelix's dome. Shock waves of pain echo throughout Steelix's body, paralysing it in pain, as Riolu once again lands another more powerful force palm, while crying out in pain itself at the damage it's inflicting on its own arm. It's this cry of pain which finally reminds Ash of the injury Riolu had taken. The boy dutifully calls for Riolu to stop, but it's too late as the Emanation Pokemon delivers a third and final blow to Steelix's head, as the behemoth of a Mon begins to crumble to the ground, leaving Riolu clutching at its own arm. Ash, having been declared the victor and won the battle, runs over to the Pokemon, checking on it, dutifully looking at Riolu's arm, unable to feel too many injuries, nothing damaged more than it already was, and once getting a confirmation from Riolu that it is fine, with it showing off how fine it is by using its bad hand to show off a rather weak looking punch, Ash is finally convinced, letting out a small sigh of relief and thanking Riolu so much for how well it fought and for helping him win his first gym battle. When saying this, the voice of Byron is heard as he walks over telling Ash he fought well and he should be really proud of his Pokemon. Ash goes to speak, but before he can even say anything, Byron speaks up with a smuggish laugh, saying it's just a shame his Bastiodon still isn't in fighting shape. He would have mopped the floor with him, but He guesses that if he had had Bastiodon and lost, it would have meant he lost to 2 Cantonians this week, which is far too many. Ash at first is annoyed and upset he didn't get to fight what he can only assume is Byron's ace. However, hearing the comment on a second Cantonian trainer, Ash asks about the other, and Byron, hearing this question, smiles wide with pride plastered across his face, saying that the other kid was strong but would have never defeated his Bastiodon without the help of his son, pride emitting from his body when he brings up his son. Ash can tell that he's excited for the day he will see his son again, as Byron can't help but wait to test Rourke's resolve of his dream. Ash, hearing this, now knows Gary is ahead of him, so wants to hit the road as fast as possible. So once collecting his badge, himself and Zoe exit the gym. Zoe praises Ash for a battle well earned, while Ash does the same to his team, thanking everyone for putting in such hard work, giving Riolu and Gligar a great deal of praise for doing well in their first official battles, causing Alekid to look on rather annoyed, watching these newbies gain the attention of his trainer. Alekid can't help feel like he contributed a great deal in that battle. He took down the Skarmory, the thing that Gligar nor Riolu could do, and he's not even getting any praise for that. Plus it developed a new move and was pulled out of battle. A great deal of emotions begin to swell inside of Alekid, and he can't help but feel frustrated at his trainer and his new teammates. He was sidelined in a battle so he could use one of his new Pokemon. It's at this moment, all Alekid can do is stare at his trainer and feel a great deal of betrayal. However, Ash, still riding a high from his victory, can't notice it, as a divide forms between himself and his starter, even when giving Alekid praise for the battle, or when recalling them on. He doesn't notice it yet, as he heads to the Pokemon Center and hands all of his Pokemon in to get checked up. Nurse Joy scolds Ash ever so slightly for using Riolu, but when spotting the Pokemon's injuries have only worsened ever so slightly, she relents on scolding him too much. Instead, Ash spends this time figuring out where he and Zoe are heading next, with them deciding that Floroma Town, with it being the next location of a contest for Zoe, and it puts them in spitting distance of Eterna City, a home of another gym, is where their destination will be. So, with their route decided, Ash collects his Pokemon, and the duo set out on their journey towards Floroma Town, Ash unaware of the shift amongst himself and his team. Meanwhile, on the other side of Mount Coronet, Gary and Rourke find themselves facing down against a band of goons trying to steal away their Cranidos and Sheldon, both boys standing guard over their Pokemon, telling these thugs to bring it. But for now, that's where I'm leaving this part. Let me know how you felt about this part. Are you interested in how Ash's battle against the next few gym leaders will go? Tell me what you think Ash's team will grow into be. How do you feel about the divide between Ash and Alekid? And more importantly, do you think the goons attacking Gary and Rourke are the same ones who had caused Riolu's injuries? Find out all that and more in the next story of Pokemon. Bye for now, guys.